So welcome back everybody. Ask the Collective 19. Rich Brubaker, founder of Collective Responsibility. And we're here to answer some questions that I've been receiving lately from different companies about how to develop your CSR strategy, your tactics, partners, and how do you assess the impact. So we hope you appreciate and enjoy this episode. If you do, please remember to like, comment, and share. So a couple of questions I want to answer here that are on this list. From my perspective, what type of CSR project would be the most effective for companies to strengthen and differentiate the brand? And I'm going to answer this very quickly and say, at this point, honestly speaking, if you're just developing a CSR program, I feel it is very difficult to create a brand differentiation of any type at this point, especially if you're doing the 101 philanthropy volunteering. And this has been true for a number of years, particularly since the earthquake in China, but over the last, say, 6 to 8 years in Asia overall. Because the fact is, the tide has been lifted. A lot of firms, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of individuals are now giving money to their favorite causes. And it's very hard to show that the amount of money that you're giving is so over the top, or the program that you're doing is so unique, or the partner that you selected is so different from everyone else, that to create something that is truly eye-popping can be very difficult. Which is why actually for most firms, when they ask me this question, immediately my first response is, who are you trying to impress? Your customers, externals, government, or your internals, be it your employees as the volunteers or your suppliers. For me, this is where things get very interesting, because you are not going to get anyone's attention unless it's a really large check or really a super scalable program that no one has done before externally. But this is where internally, if you want to differentiate your brand, how you attract, retain, and manage your ongoing staff on a normal day-to-day in the business itself. So you could pick a GE, a Coca-Cola, Huawei, it could be a Chinese, foreign firm, whoever, big or small. If you are developing a culture where CSR, corporate social responsibility, is embedded into the day-to-day activities of individual staff, interns, managers, executives, and you're using that as a way to hook them into the organization's culture, you're giving them empowerment, you're allowing them to go and volunteer on a Friday afternoon, you're allowing them to come to you with an idea of their own about a topic that's important to them, a partner who they believe in, whatever it may be, and you're using that as a way to drive your culture, that's where you create differentiation. And that's where I think groups like, I've seen this at GE, I've seen this at Starbucks, I've seen this in some Chinese firms, Alibaba's now really showing some of that, where it's no longer about how you look from the outside, it's all about how people feel from the inside. And so from your basic definition of corporate social responsibility, which is philanthropy, volunteering, and then maybe getting into some of the operations of the organization, I really feel the best way that you can differentiate is by looking internally, figuring out what are the causes that are important to your average staff, managers, executives, and starting there. Because you want to differentiate with them, because they are the asset that you need. And in many ways in China and Asia, they're the asset the most difficult to find, especially if you're looking for truly innovative, millennial, senior managers who are going to take your brand forward for the next 3, 5, 50 years. They're going to bring you the new breakout product, or they're just going to develop the teams that you need to really engage millennials externally. That's how I think that you should do it. So I hope that answers that question, or at least starts a conversation for you. More than happy to dive a little bit further into that. But following that, what are the key considerations when selecting CSR partners? Now, I'm going to go with nonprofit, volunteering, philanthropy-based partners as the context for this conversation. The reality is, it depends upon the goal. Now, for most of the firms that we work with, there's a few things that I want to know first. First is, on what scale and what's the impact that you want from your program itself? Like, what's the goal? Are you trying to engage a lot of people once? Are you trying to engage a few people on a regular basis? Are you trying to have a local measurable impact? Or are you trying to develop government relations? All of these questions are really important, and knowing what the output of your program is going to be is critical to understanding what partners you select. Because in China you have a range of partners, and I'm going to start with the international NGOs, because this is where everyone really starts. your WWFs, could be United Way, could be Save the Children, Mercy Corps, all very popular organizations where large brands, medium brands, or entrepreneurs can engage with them primarily on a financial basis. I've seen some really creative volunteer-based programs where it's a mix and match, where they'll donate a bit of money, but they'll also look to engage their staff. This gets challenging because oftentimes these organizations operate outside of Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, where the major offices for brands and for their offices are. So one challenge, but they have the most structured programs. They also have the most transparent programs. They report back to you when you ask them for specific information about how the money was spent, the impact of the money, the organization that they're ultimately working with. They have the most structure, the most process, they're the most trustworthy. They're also the organizations that historically have received the largest donations. The $500,000, $1 million, $5 million New York-based donation to cover a global contract. So in that sense, they've often been the one that comes top down from headquarters and into China. A step below that would be the NGOs that have a global affiliation but are really locally developed, locally sourced for the local market. These may be structured as a trading company, they may be structured as an international NGO, they may be structured as a local NGO. And they're kind of the hybrid between the grassroots NGO that you want to work with, but they have the team, the programming, the structure that you trust. Oftentimes, this comes from the executive as well, locally, and they're making the spending decision. These organizations tend to have less scalability. They tend to be structured maybe in one city, maybe they can travel to 2 or 3, but they are of a much smaller order than your global NGOs. Why you like to work with them is because they will often have a mixed team of, definitely strong local, but also maybe one executive or a couple of managers are of the international flavor. More and more they're localizing 100%, so that it really depends upon the group. But what they can do is help you bridge closer to the local challenge, the local group that you want to be working with. They'll help you understand the context of why it's important to work with this group, and they'll also understand how to develop a proper impact assessment. The third group that a lot of organizations see the scale of, but are a little bit scared of or unsure of how to work with them, is the GONGOs, the government organized non-government organizations. Now, I'll let that sink in, government organized non-government organizations. They are basically the policy NGOs of the government itself. So they are the Women Children Federation, they'll be the foundations, very large. They'll have offices in all the provinces, all the major cities, oftentimes, depending upon their structure, like in Shanghai, you'll have one in every district, but maybe it could be in every village of Yunnan or Sichuan or in a poor area if they're the Poverty Alleviation Foundation. They are actually really strong when it comes to government relations, when it comes to moving a lot of resources towards a single issue. Resources being money on one end, but also just the infrastructure. They have the PhDs, they have the academics, they have the government connections, they have the media. And so there's a really compelling reason for why you want to work with them. But the challenge is they don't have a strong history of working with corporate partners, particularly corporate partners who are looking for impact assessment, for corporate partners who are looking for a real, an account manager, looking for transparency in accounting. And so this becomes the real challenge. The last group is the local grassroots NGOs, 3 to 5 people. They're the ones who actually you can create really scalable programs, you can create an emotional tie with the founders, and you can scale up. The problem is they often have no systems, no structure, they're really flexible, and also they don't really require a lot of money. So if you need to move a lot of money, if you want to bring a lot of volunteers into this program, it can be quite a challenge. Now, those are the 4 basic types of partners. How do you create the right partnership? Again, start with what are your goals? Who's the group that you want to help? Who's the issue that you want to help solve? Or what's the issue you want to help solve? You want to help puppy dogs, you want to help elderly, you want to plant trees. Each one of them will have different organizations from the grassroots, GONGOs, international NGOs, or kind of the hybrid NGOs that you can then engage with. You then look at the scalability of your intent. Do you want to work within one city or do you want to work across the country? If you want to work across the country, there's only really the GONGOs and maybe some of the international NGOs that have partnership with GONGOs that you can work with effectively using 1 or 2 points of contact. The other option, if you want to do something nationally, is have 15 different NGOs, 15 points of contact, 15 groups you have to do due diligence on. So again, you can see why it's more interesting sometimes to work with the gongos than it is with local grassroots. But if you just want to do something for your employees and do it something down the street where they can leave for lunch, tutor some kids, dance with some elderly, pet some puppy dogs, plant a couple trees, you can find a nice local NGO where you need to spend a few thousand renminbi, a few thousand US dollars, a little bit of your time, and it's very easy to execute. You create a friendship more than a partnership in some level. You know where the money's going because your volunteers are going there, because your executives can see it. You're not solving the world's problems, you're not even solving the city's problems, but you're creating kind of elements of impact, you're creating hooks, you're showing that you care. And I think that that also offers a lot of value to your internals. The final piece of creating a good partnership is actually having a standard that you keep. And this isn't something that a lot of firms go into thinking about, but it's definitely something that when you're developing your programs, you're developing your partnerships, you really need to have an assessment at the end of the year, the end of the quarter, of has this been successful? Can this grow? Should it grow? Like really have an honest assessment of the project and hold yourselves and your partners to that standard. You may not necessarily have metrics to back that up. It may be a feeling, but you have to create a construct whereby you can kind of report the success, or you can learn from the challenge, or you can move away from the failures. And I think that this is really, not just in the short term, but also in the long term, will help to provide better partnerships overall. On one hand, because you're teaching, in some sense, we still need to do a lot of work with the NGOs. Not teach them, but help them understand that these standards exist for their benefit as well as for the beneficiary as well as for the donor. That as they get stronger, as they're forced to get stronger, everything improves. Teaching them business models, teaching them how to, like, their own KPIs. On the other hand, it also makes sure that you respect the time and the effort and the investment that your employees are making as well. That when they see that there's something wrong, they can love the issue. But if they know the partner is wrong, then you go find the other partner. But if they love both the issue and the partner, but the partner's got a challenge, then you can direct that energy, direct that concern, so that your employees can get deeper into the process itself. And when it starts to work, when the partnership, the program, the impact all come together, they'll take a lot of pride in that. And even though that's not the greatest partnership, it makes for a great process whereby you can constantly improve upon the partner who probably was referred by one of your staff. How do you pick the right partner? How do you measure success? And what are some common pitfalls? The biggest pitfall I see, honestly, is like there's no clear strategy. There's no clear passion for a topic. It's just, we have to do this because our competitors are. We have to do this because we're being asked to report it. We have to do this because Global told us. Like, that's the worst place to start, honestly. You're basically, you're starting off the wrong foot. You have no direction. And so everything that you do from there is going to lead towards disappointment. The second one is you fail to kind of engage your employees up front. What are the issues that they care about? Do they know of any partners? What do they want to accomplish at the end? Talk to them. If you don't, they're not going to show up. Or they might show up once, they'll hate it, they won't enjoy it, they won't tell their friends, they won't share pictures, so the benefit is lost. And you really want your employees showing up to projects excited, interested in the topic, wanting to engage, and they're taking pictures as a team and sharing them. Now, that's not the whole thing they do all day, but you certainly want them to like enjoy the activity so they come back. The other thing you do is you kind of have the wrong expectations. If you have 300 people working in your office, you're only going to have 5 who go on a regular basis. You're only going to get 30 to go once a quarter. Don't think that because you have 300 people in the office that they're going to go twice a week, that they're going to go once a month. People have jobs to do. They are worried about that. Keep that in context. Away from the volunteering, but more towards philanthropy. Again, make sure you know what your employees want you giving money to. Don't make this about the executives. Engage them. Allow them to contribute. Allow them to be there. Allow them to take some credit for this. Another common pitfall is just kind of like outsourcing to your partner and having zero expectations. If you do that, you get out what you put in. You will get a program that doesn't seem right. You will not get the report that you want. You will not get the service that you expected. And you should expect a quality service from your partners. If you don't, that means you don't really care enough about the project to begin with. And so you're just donate the money with zero expectations and walk away in reality. But if you want to scale up, then really make sure that you're identifying partners who can help you scale. Even if they're just in one city today, just make sure that you trust and love them, and you can work with them really clearly, and that you can scale it up over time through continued investment. The other major pitfall I find is that people try to skimp. They'll say they can't pay for this, they can't pay for that, they don't want to invest in the overhead of the organization, but they'll give 100,000 renminbi to their PR firm to take a few pictures, translate it, and send out the copy to externals. Balance your investment. Understand that at the end of the day, it's not a cost. This should be an investment, there should be an ROI, and anything you put down should grow over time. If you are paying more for your PR firm to promote your activities than you are on the activities themselves or on the partnership, guess what? You're getting out what you put in again. You're going to get maybe some media hits, but internally, you're not going to get the engagement long-term that you really want at the end of the day. And so, if you do these things well, if you spend the time, 1 month, 3 months, a year, to ask yourself these questions, to create real clarity, to create high expectations, to create the best partnerships, and to engage your staff, what you're going to find is that your CSR investment, whether it's 10,000 kwai or 10 million kwai, will bring the return back to the firm, not just in terms of brand and differentiation, but in the way that you attract, train, and retain your staff. And for me, that is the most important thing that you can do. So I really hope that through this video you gain some high level, but also some real hooks and tools that you can apply towards developing your own CSR strategy in China, but also in Asia, because this is ubiquitous. When I'm in Singapore or Hong Kong or Jakarta, the same conversation roughly. So the same process roughly. So I hope that this has helped. If it has, please like, comment, and share. And if you have a specific program that you're trying to work out, or you've had a failure that you're trying to learn from, please, either directly or in the comments below, just put it in there and we'll be happy to address it. Thank you very much and have a great week.